Today on Bridges, what you need to know about widows. I'm glad that you could join us today for Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter, and today we're going to talk about what you need to know about widows. And quite honestly, as I looked at some of the research and the statistics, I was absolutely surprised. I had no idea that there are so many young widows, and my guest today is a young widow herself, Jillian Chambers. So she's experienced this, and Jillian, you were happily married to Danny for 31 years.
Yes, we were together almost 31 years, and on September 23rd, 2020, I woke up a widow. I had no idea, and I had no idea what widowhood looked like. The first time someone said widow to me, I didn't even pay attention to that they were referring to me, because I didn't see myself as a widow. It took a really long time for me to even understand what had happened and what position I am now in society. So when I go in and fill out things, I have to put widow down, and it's very strange.
Yeah, I would think so.
You know why? Most people, when you say the word widow, you remember the old Looney Tunes Tweety Birdcage and the lady that's sitting in front, knitting, rocking.
Yeah,
That's the image, that pops up, is an older lady widow.
Because most of us, right, whatever script we have in our head, and it's different for everybody, but for many adults, it's, I'm going to grow up, get married, and have children, right, and we're going to grow old together.
That's right.
So you say that, we're going to grow old together. And when you're a young widow or young widower, you don't get that opportunity to grow old together. Life gets cut short. And even if you can prepare yourself, like if someone is sick and then they die, there's still no preparation for the finality and for what life looks like. But for you, it was just sudden, unexpected. You go to bed one night a married woman, you wake up a widow. But you gave me some statistics, and it shocked me, Jillian.
Well, the statistics I gave you were before COVID, so this was from 2019, and as we were talking earlier, it's amazing, the research, and it's really unfortunate because death is happening so rapidly that we can't keep up with the numbers. And so the numbers that we're talking about are pre-COVID. So now you can imagine adding COVID to those numbers and how it's probably changed. But in 2019, there was 11.7 million widows in the United States of America.
11.7.
Yeah.
It shocks me. And then I looked at this, that you said 79% of widows are under the age of 59. That shocked me the most.
It shocked me as well. And when I heard it, I couldn't believe it. And so I did some more research, and it was true. The challenge is most people, because of that inner narrative of what a widow looks like, they don't understand the secondary losses that a widow goes through. And so if she's 59 or younger, she still has kids at home. So she's not only lost her happily ever after, her spouse, her best friend, her lover, she's now lost her parenting partner. She's lost her financial source of income. Most women are not the main source of income in a marriage setting. So with that, you've got women who are stay-at-home moms that now have to re-enter a workforce that they have no idea. They don't have a career, they don't have a diploma, they don't have a master's degree. And a lot of women are losing their houses, their cars, because not only that, they have lost their health benefits because their health benefits came with their husband's job. I have a friend who's a widow in Atlanta, and her husband did it right. He set her up. They had life insurance. He had a will. He had a trust. He had everything lined up, and she was okay. But then she went to the dentist and went to check out and had no benefits, and did not have a clue or realize the reality of where she was regarding health care. So most women don't have health care for themselves or their children. And so there's all these secondary losses that come with becoming a widow. And
and I had never thought of that.
Most people don't.
I guess I thought, well, if you have a will, right, and if there's life insurance, there are some provisions, right, even if it's just to help in the interim. But I didn't think about that. If the husband had the benefits, that now this woman and her children don't have dental care, vision, health.
And what you have is you have a woman who has lost her life, her identity as a wife, and her parenting partner, and her financial manager, and her covering. So physically her, for the first year, you're kind of living on your adrenals. So whether you're fight, flight, or freeze, for me, I'm fight. So my adrenaline was carrying me through the first year. Some women are freeze, they're paralyzed. They can't make decisions, they can't do anything. Some of them just escape, they just gotta get away. But then after that first year, you go through adrenal fatigue. So now your physical body is taking a hit. So your cortisol levels are high, all your stress levels are high. Losing a spouse is the #1 stress for anybody. And so it causes so many secondary losses. So now you've got your health and then your mental health. So what people don't realize is a child that has just lost their father is looking at their mother who is on the verge of loss, mentally, physically, financially. So now when I work with widows and walk with widows, I encourage them, don't let your children lose both. They've already lost one parent.
Right.
And so now you've got a widow and you've got fatherless sons and daughters.
It's just so much pressure. There was a young lady from our youth group from years ago who's now 43, and she became a widow just a few months ago.
Wow.
And her husband had become ill before he passed away, but essentially what happened to her is she had been a stay-at-home mom, then she became his caretaker. And so she posted on Facebook, and my heart just went out to her. I don't even get a minute to grieve. I have to go get a job. We have no health care, we have no benefits. There was no insurance because he was sick, pre-existing condition, like all of these things. And I'm thinking, okay, like at 43 years old, who thought that was gonna happen?
Well, and unfortunately, you get 1 day bereavement. If you are a woman and you have a job, you get 1 day of bereavement. That's not even enough time to make the funeral arrangements.
Well, no.
You can't, you have to have more time than that.
No,
So
it's not even enough time to let people know.
Well, we have a society that doesn't recognize the plight of a widow. And we also have a church that we have an opportunity to do better. And so that's where I'm at right now, is working with my church. I'm employed by a church out of Birmingham, and I'm working with the pastoral staff and the pastoral team there on a curriculum called Walking with Widows that will help widows not only find, a sense of identity, but a community, And I had someone tell me one time, they said, you are a widow, but that's not your title does not determine your identity. And I agree with that. I don't think that my title as widow determines who I am. But I do believe, Monica, that our title determines our community. Because when I was a pastor, my community was pastors. And now that I'm a widow, my community has become this world of and not just widows, but widowers as well, because there's a lot of men out there that are just looking for, not necessarily catfishing women, but they're just looking for, I don't know what to do. My wife told me what to do, basically.
Exactly.
And
she kept the schedule, even the family schedule. She planned the holidays.
Managed the house.
She did all of those things. And now what does he do?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's real. And
It's
I
very
think
real.
what you said about the title in widow and community, that's really important. Because if we just look at our lives, Jillian, right? If we're married, we're in married groups.
That's right.
Or if it's a women's group, it's usually a married women's group, because we kind of have, or young moms.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Moms of adult children.
Yes.
All of these things, men's Bible study. So you're right, pastors do with pastors. So you're doing Walking with Widows to kind of help create community?
Yes. Well, what I've discovered is widows especially, we really just, there's things that we need. We need comfort. Comfort says, I'm not going to rush you through this process. I'm going to sit with you. I'm not going to have all the answers. I'm not going to try to answer or find, I'm not going to answer, but I'm going to just be present. And, just if you need me to cry, if you need me to laugh, if you need me to tell a joke, if you want to tell stories, I'm just going to be with you. So that's comfort. We also need covering, because, we don't have our husbands to drop us off at the front of the building in the rain or the snow, or, to walk us in the dark of the night, or to check on us if our air conditioner goes out.
Or even if it's late at night and I'm going from maybe a speaking event or visiting somebody, I will call my husband and say, I'm leaving now from XYZ, so that someone knows if I don't make it, that something has happened. And we don't think about that.
We just don't think about it until it happens to us.
Right.
And we need community. And the challenge with community is you go from being married to being single. You're not single, you were married. And so most churches don't have a widower box on their contact form, so they don't even know who's amongst their congregation. And some of them do. And some of them are trying really hard to minister, so I'm appreciative of that. But when you go through what I call identity displacement, it's not an identity crisis, but you don't know your place. Because now, where do I sit at church? What groups do I go? Because if I'm a part of a group and my husband passes, they're mourning his loss as well. They miss him as well. And so now you walk into the room and everything changes. You're the head tilt, you get the head tilts. You get the I'm so sorry's, you get the are you going to be okay? So you almost feel like you're upstaging the purpose of the event because your presence there. So it's easy for the mind monsters to convince you to stay home.
Right.
And that's the worst thing you can do. Yeah. We also go through dopamine withdrawal, just like an addict. I learned this, that when you're married, your husband provides a biological pleasure in your dopamine that increases that hormone that makes you go, oh, and that's gone. And so the depression sits in, which makes you want to isolate. And so what I've learned, Monica, is even though my husband's gone, I can still find a sense of longing and pleasure and joy from my grandkids, my kids. But what I've discovered is when I serve. So when we find a place of contribution and not just being a consumer, but actually becoming a contributor, whether it's going down the street, I've gone down to Walgreens and just looked at the cashier and said, I just want to tell you that I appreciate you getting up and showing up here today and being here with a smile. And just making someone else feel valued actually increases my personal dopamine and my serotonin, which biologically God made us that way. He wants us to serve one another. What I've discovered also is that you can't serve the unseen. So when you don't see a widow, when you don't know their plight, you can't serve them.
Right.
And so my calling is to help people see that there is a real world out there. 2,800 women every single day become a widow in the U.S.
Yeah.
So
there's
that's yesterday,
this real world that
today,
we're not seeing
tomorrow.
because we're so busy in our world.
Right.
And because it's not because people are unkind or not caring, because I think especially believers, we do care.
Yeah.
We just haven't seen, like what you said, this invisible group of people. And so you're working on a curriculum, Walking with Widows, to help with that.
Yes, and from the widow's perspective, we also don't want to be an inconvenience to people. We don't want to we don't want to drain people. So we don't like to reach out and ask for help because honestly, we feel like we just feel like we're a drain. And what I would say is there's a balance. There's a tightrope between becoming, a leech and sucking the life out of people and then being so independent that nobody knows you exist.
Right.
There's got to be a place in the middle where we all meet together.
Agreed.
And that we understand one another and that we see each other. And I don't expect you to fix all my problems, but wow, just this opportunity to be on your show today and just to share and help people be aware that there are women amongst you. They don't look like the old lady in the rocking chair knitting in front of the Tweety Bird cage. They look like the young woman.
Right. They look like you.
They look like a woman in North Carolina whose husband took his life at an Airbnb and she has a 6-month-old son. She's in her early 30s. And so that's what they look like, young moms who are now parenting alone. And it's a lot and it can be very daunting, but if we all pull together, we're better together.
Absolutely. And our awareness and then doing something about it. We've got to take a break. I want you to stay with us. When we come back, we're going to continue talking about what you need to know about widows.
Life can be hard and days can be long. So if you're looking for hope for the journey, MonicaSchmelter.com is a great place to get started. On MonicaSchmelter.com, you'll find Monica's teachings on demand. And if you're looking to really grow your faith, you'll find online extras are available with every teaching. So don't wait another day. Get started now at MonicaSchmelter.com and you will find hope for the journey.
Don't miss another episode of Bridges. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today where you can find all of Monica's latest teachings. Just visit youtube.com, search Monica Schmelter, and click subscribe. Once subscribed, click the bell icon to get notified when a new episode is available. Thanks for watching Bridges.
Today we are opening the discussion on what you need to know about widows. And I will tell you, as I've gone through the statistics, as I've talked with my guest, Jillian Chambers, I can tell you that I've been shocked and stunned by what widowhood looks like in modern America. And Jillian, I appreciate you coming and sharing your journey. And I am, as we all are, so sorry for your loss and grateful that you're processing through the grief and really finding some purpose to open this conversation, because I don't believe anybody wants to not care about widows. We just imagine it to be a much older person, and we need to care about them
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
But we don't realize that the young lady at church that's sitting alone, she might not be single, she might be a widow.
Mm-hmm. There's, the face of the widow is so different than what we think and what we imagine. And through my process on this path, I mean, nobody wakes up and decides, I want to be a spokesmodel for widowhood,
No.
But what I did decide was I will turn my pain into power and into purpose. And I was doing an interview a few months ago, and it came out of me. It said, I am a vow fulfiller till death do us part. And he parted. And so I fulfilled my vow. And it shifted my paradigm from a widowhood perspective that I'm not pitiful and powerful, because I crossed the finish line on that marriage. And I'm trying to help widows and widowers understand you are a vow fulfiller. That gives you power. It's painful to be a vow fulfiller. And Monica, honestly, people are not prepared.
No.
They're not prepared. I have on my website, I have a widow's checklist. It's the first year after death, and it walks you through what to do immediately, what to do in the first month, what to do in the third month, the 6th month, the 8th month, and it walks you through what to do. And I would encourage married couples to sit down and look at that checklist and prepare themselves, because in addition to the losses that we experience, my husband and I, we did a will and a trust, and so it was a great blessing to me, because it took off so many extra layers of pain and pressure. And honestly, it's discouraging not knowing if I'm making the right decision about what to do with this and what to do with that. When you make those decisions together, it just removes a whole level and a whole layer of pain.
Yes.
So preparation is very key in becoming a widow or a widower.
And I know we're all afraid to do that, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't want to have that conversation. Right, I just want to think that Jesus is going to come back before any of that happens. Like, I don't want to deal with it yet. Death is an eventuality for all of us.
Absolutely.
None of us are getting out of here alive. And I hear all the people say, well, the rapture. Okay, but
that's
barring
fine.
that,
Sure.
and some people don't even believe in the rapture. Okay, we're just saying.
Yeah. Here's the thing. What I tell people is denial is not prevention.
No, it's not.
It's going to happen.
That's really
And
good.
so preparation brings a level of, like me being on this side of the table, that preparation, even though it was awkward and very uncomfortable, the discomfort was worth it, because on this side of the table, I'm so thankful to God that my husband told me, here's where this is, my passwords to this, we have a joint bank account. I can't tell you how many couples don't even have their joint bank accounts.
I know, and it's just
For
awful.
probate, that's a mess.
It's absolutely awful.
That will set you back months.
I've talked to women who have said, like, they didn't know the passwords. Okay, so these days trying to get into anything with two-factor authentication, this and that, and she's just trying to get herself together for the funeral. We're not even talking about life after that. You can't get into the necessary accounts, and so none of us think this is going to happen.
Yeah. And I see it's hard for me, because I don't want to say it's going to happen, but 80% of women will become a widow.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry. I wish I didn't have that statistic, but it's just there. So you can either prepare for it, or it can paralyze you when it happens.
Well, none of us want this to happen, and none of us want to be the cheerleader for this, but I think what we're saying is that in order to be a vow fulfiller and the best steward of our life and what God has given us, this is a part of our responsibility. It's the painful part, right?
Yes.
The getting married, the having the babies, those are the joys. And along with that, since we live in a broken world, we have these other things that we also have to tend to. Like, I don't like to take the garbage out of my house, but it does need to be taken out regularly.
I wish it would take itself out.
I wish it would, and I wish it wasn't garbage day in the rain, right? But we all have things that we have to do that are not pleasant. We'd rather not do. And what we're saying is, this is so important, we need to do it.
Absolutely. Preparation.
Yeah. My son has a friend that's a 30-year-old widow.
Wow.
And so he did have life insurance, but they didn't seek counsel on it. And they thought because they were so young, they could leave it in the son's name. the son is just a kid. So the widow, like, she has no access to any of that. And I can understand, you know, they got married at 24. Of course they thought that. We'll just leave this for our children, right? Of course they thought that. I don't fault them. I get that. I just hurt for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's hard.
And he wouldn't want that for her.
He would
If he was
not.
still alive, he would. The whole reason he left that was to take care of her.
He did, and their kid, and they were thinking that they were going to get really old and not die till you're 125.
And die together.
And die together
at the same time. See, we all have our script, right? And it doesn't always work out the way that we script it to.
We don't.
And so preparation is the only way to bring, you know, it does provide peace. And that's what I want people to understand. It's like if you are a mother and you've had a child, especially in labor, it's very painful. But when they put the baby in your arms and you look at that baby, I don't know how God does that, but it goes away.
I don't know.
That pain goes away, and it's almost like this precious gift overrides the pain.
Yes.
And the precious gift after the preparation will override the discomfort in the preparation, if you will just prepare yourself.
Yes. And it's a part of love.
It is, absolutely.
And it's a part of protection. And if we can see it in those terms, instead of all the things the painful things that we don't want to deal with, I think that would be most helpful. And I appreciate that you're opening that conversation, because I can be honest and say, I don't want to think about that. Like, I do not want to think about that. But I also don't want that to happen and I'm completely unprepared, or for any of my friends to be completely unprepared. So this curriculum, Walking with Widows, like, what is that going to look like and where's that going to go?
Well, right now we're working on the curriculum itself. I do have 7 stages it's hope and healing is the main focus for the first set, and it will be video curriculum that I'm working with my church and my pastors at Church of the Highlands, and we're going to pilot it at our church. We have 23 campuses, and in the fall we'll pilot it, and we'll just kind of tweak it, make sure that it's it's relevant, it's working, and get feedback and gather widows, and just hope make sure it's bringing help and healing, hope and healing. And then once we've piloted it there, then we'll release it and make it available for other churches. And it basically just walks through the 7 stages of grief. And, but it provides a community, and it provides a safe space. And the thing about widowhood is you don't want to stay, young widows, you don't want to stay a widow. And so, but you've got to get through the healing and the hope part so that you can reinvent yourself. The last stage is reinvention. And once you reinvent yourself, you have a piece about your next. So whether your piece about your next is I'm going to get remarried, or the piece about my next is I'm not going to get remarried. But through that, you will find that piece.
Right. So when you're saying not being a widow anymore, you don't mean necessarily that the person must decide to get married. You're just saying that there has to be a time that quits to be just your identity, that you've got purpose, that you're comfortable with what's next, you have peace because you've grieved properly.
Yes.
How do people that have not experienced this, how can we best be helpful to the community of widows?
We just want to be seen.
Yeah, of course.
And honestly heard. And, like you said, when you leave at night, you text your husband, and he knows if you're not there in a certain amount of time, that, I have so many children that I can text my kids, but there are a lot of widows, like you said, this 30-year-old, she can't text her little baby son. And so rallying around, especially younger widows, and letting them know we're here. Whether you need a babysitter, whether you need someone to make sure you get home safe at night. If you need, my air conditioner broke. I had no idea what kind of an air conditioner to look for, how much I should spend. My grinder pump broke down. I mean, all these things started breaking down around my house, and I feel so inadequate. So it's having someone in my world that I can reach out to that knows more than I do, without making me feel like I'm so like a drain on you. And encouraging, obviously prayer, but beyond prayer, it's just, hey, knocking on their door and saying, do you need help with your landscaping? Do you need advice on anything? you know, how can I help you today? And honestly, most of us don't need a lot of help. We feel inadequate in a lot of ways without our husband.
Yeah.
And so when my car has issues, I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what to do with this. Do I go take it to the dealer and spend 3 times as much, or do I try to fix it, look at YouTube, or, you know, what do I do? And so thank God I have 2 sons and some spiritual sons that I can call on, but most widows don't have that.
Right.
So it's really rallying around, just being the community.
Yeah, because you said something that I thought was so powerful, right? I can't fix anything for you, right?
No, you can't.
Because if I could,
Man, if you could, it'd be
would.
great.
And I would do it in a moment. But I think the best gift that we can give people is to show up without judgment. Because we really don't know how long someone should grieve or they shouldn't. And we're all wired differently.
That's absolutely right.
You know, some people are going to cry and scream and whatever, other people are going to be quiet and withdraw, and that's all okay. There's not just one Christian way to grieve, and there's not just one timetable. You know, I have a friend who's also a young widow, and her husband passed of cancer, but she still wasn't prepared. And she goes through guilt sometimes when she has a belly laugh, right? Because they did that together. They were a really happy couple. And so there's just so much to go through. So I just tell her, just say whatever you need to say, no judgment. I'll just sit here, you tell me what you need, and I'll do that.
You know, one of the things that I remembered that my husband used to say when he would conduct a funeral was he would say, there's no sorrow in heaven. And after he passed, I remembered there's no sorrow in heaven. So if I am in a puddle of tears in the floor in a fetal position constantly, and I imagine my husband looking over at me from heaven, he would be sorrowful.
Yes.
So what I realized was those moments are important, but if I really want to be seen, I need to find my happy.
Yeah.
Because there's joy in heaven.
Yes.
So the giggles and the laughter are honestly more life-giving. And so we don't need to be ashamed or feel guilty when we have those moments of laughter, because our loved ones would want to see us laughing because they can't see us crying.
Yes.
There's no sorrow in heaven.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much for coming today and for sharing your story. Thank you
so much.
Thanks for watching Bridges.
God's word says you're an overcomer. If you hadn't done blah, 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 this wouldn't have happened. And let me say this to you. If you think that you are in a mess of your own making, you are still an overcomer. When that temptation comes, you want to make sure that you are dressed for battle. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. It takes training. It takes discipline. And so when you're fighting that good fight of the faith, you take your story, whatever it is, and you saturate it in faith, and you fight for it.
Visit monicaschmelter.com to schedule Monica to speak at your next event.
Don't miss another episode of Bridges. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today where you can find all of Monica's latest teachings. Just visit youtube.com, search Monica Schmelter, and click subscribe. Once subscribed, click the bell icon to get notified when a new episode is available. Thanks for watching Bridges.